You're on the couch, tripping with Dr. Pete.
One of the dope things about going to a therapist when you are grieving a loss is the funny thing that I don't know if you guys are not allowed to do it, but that they don't do the bounce off shit where it's like, you just shared this, major thing and they're like, I just went through that too. Like that, that's such an irritating thing.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to laugh, but that is
I know what you
such
mean. I totally know what you mean. Yeah, it's like
It's
take
like,
the
no.
focus off of you. Like it's all about me in this moment.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
did you come to support me, or are we gonna have a war of who has more words?
more pain, right? Yeah, it's like the war of the heartache, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the therapists don't do that.
The therapists don't do that typically, right?
No.
And the other thing, right, is a therapist won't typically say they are aware of the mourning process. So they also won't tell you like you should be like, okay, they're in a better place now. Everything's gonna be okay. Like that shit for people is really hard. I have had patients who've just come to me. A part of what they were talking about is like how frustrating people are.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't mean and that's why they have to talk to me about it, because they know that the people are well-intentioned, but people just say shit, and you're in a space, first of all, sometimes even if they say something that's benign, you're just feeling everything, and you're just like, it's just nothing that they can say is going to be the thing, and they're thinking like, if I just say this one quote, then you'll be all right. And it's not that way,
They're just not aware too sometimes. Of the things that they say, Like I said, I lost my sister to an overdose, and I've had friends who were there for me. So don't get me wrong, but those same friends, when months pass by, certain statements they would say, it's like, dude, did you forget like what I just went through? Like, like it's people just, I don't blame them 100%, but it's like they're just unaware, which kind of makes people do that thing where they just kind of get into a shell and don't really want to talk too much about it, because it's like everything is, like you said, you're feeling everything is sensitive to you, everything is gonna make you feel some type of way that triggers that and like makes those emotions come on. But I also don't like to be in a position where it's like I want everyone to feel like I'm sad, be sad with me. So it's a battle, like that's
it's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I could talk to the people who are standing by others who have lost, I think the message that we're hearing and we're talking about is all you have to do is be there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people talk about like, I'm just like they'll send the message, call me if you need something, right? But that's not really that's not realistic sometimes. So sometimes you got to kind of get in there, bring over the person a food for that night or for the week, something like, drop off, go take their laundry to get done.
Be mindful.
Be mindful, like show up in like real ways for your person who is struggling, come over and take the kids so they can have some time to themselves. You know what I mean? Like people say, if you need anything, well, first of all, I don't want to articulate that I need anything. I don't know what the fuck I need. I'm just going through this, So just remember that for the friends who, when a friend loses someone, just think about small, thoughtful ways of being present for that friend. Because I know that's one of the things we all struggle with. We want to be there for the people we love, but we just don't know how to be there. We just really don't know how to be there. And then the other thing is, when it comes to talking, just listen. And if my piece of advice to all the people being there for someone is just to let them know, I'm here for you, and I'm going to be here for you. Yeah, I think that's important.
Me too.
Yeah. Let's pop a couple bubbles, and I have a poem I want to read. So let's go through.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Yay,
Spirit.
she's back. She's with us. We missed you, Spirited. She was sad. She was like... She texted me. She was like, tell Queen I say hi. Why is this going on? She was not happy. She's missing our sister. It's good to have you with the Spirited. I feel stronger in the conversation already because you're here.
Spirited.
I definitely agree with everything that you guys are saying, and I know that I'm younger, but I've dealt with loss of my grandparents and some of my friends that were my same age or even younger than me and their siblings, and I think that allowing myself to be vulnerable with their memories and letting myself reminisce and taking that mental health day just to unwind if I need it and not feeling bad about taking that mental health day is so important, and I wish was a little more normalized in our society to just decompress and let it out, because like you said, you really gotta let it go of that energy.
Yeah. And even I think what happens too, and I know that I'm in this place as my parents are getting older, you start to get a little bit of anxiety about the loss that's, pending, right? Because you know that life is not forever, it's temporary, and as your parents age, you watch them and they have all sorts of things go on, and near-death moments happen. My mother had a stroke, and you're just constantly facing, we all are constantly facing our own, mortality, as well as the mortality of people that we love. And it's really, really hard because, you can't get out of this life without grieving if you live long enough. Mm-hmm. So that was another reason why I really wanted to do this talk, not because it's built for everybody, but because I feel like as I've spent, and I'm not judging anybody, because we've had some fun on this app, and I think that's about that too. But as I kind of listen to the topics and so forth, and I kind of go through, sometimes you just want to have a podcast, or you want to have a talk that actually kind of may make more of your life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I want to set out to do in all of my talks, is really add to people's life, add to their perspective, and have something that really enriches your being, and sometimes those conversations are not comfortable, right? It's not comfortable to be enriched in that way, we're gonna pop a couple more bubbles and then we'll see where we go. Are you all right, Queen?
Yeah, man.
All right, because I know you don't pop a damn bubble ever, so you know what I mean. I can't. Let's do it.
Peace, love, Sanaa, chakra, love, frequency, earth go, grand rising. So I just want to speak real fast upon death and say that, we don't die. So I think if people truly had that understanding that we don't die, we live on forever, you know what I mean? We just die from this physical body. And I think people will deal with death a little bit differently. Death is transformation, you know what I mean? So it's transformation to something better. So anytime, anyone leaves this planet, they off to somewhere better. So, but I understand the emotions of the flesh of the human and, the lack of information. So when we, gauge death, you know what I mean? We approach it in a manner of...
Hi, Malik. That's my my good friend in real life. He probably continue to the next comment.
Okay.
If you want to see a true celebration of life, go down in New Orleans. When people die out there, they bring out the marching bands. They're very energetic with it. They carry the coffin through the streets, and they allow everybody to join into the parade, and it's a true celebration of life.
Have you ever seen those? I've seen them. I've never participated, but it is they're all through the street. It's huge down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dope cultural piece. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll put that in my will. You know what I mean? Bury me in New Orleans.
I never got to see it.
Look
I never
it on
did
YouTube.
The end, but I never got to see it. As far as the funeral goes, so I will look.
Yeah, their procession is they got the black hats and the costumes. It's like a parade almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, New Orleans does it special down there. I wanted to say to your friend Malik, first of all, thank you for your contribution. I think you're spot on. I think that, and I think what is implicit in what you're saying is our belief structure, our religion, our spiritual belief structure, where we think we stand in the universe, our understanding of life itself, very much plays a part in how we understand death. And I think you're right on when you talk about, from certain perspectives, this is not an end. And, I wanted to talk about this just a little bit. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it just because it's not my area. But I do want to talk about, there's been a lot of research and I want you all to look it up on YouTube or look up on books. There's books about it. I bought a couple books. I'm going to look up on my shelf, see if I can name the titles. But there's about life after death, right? They did studies about people who've had near-death experiences, and they've interviewed them. And they did collections. I mean, thousands of people who had thousands of stories, and a lot of the stories were similar. There was always this moment where the being was hovering over the being, and there was things that they were perceiving and reporting that they could not have. They were declared dead. So there's no way they could have been, seeing these things. They were spatially out of sight for that person while their eyes were closed. Like they were, conversations that were happening, the ways that people looked in the room. So like all this information basically was being accurately reported in these studies, because there is this afterlife, this real spirit that is described to be leaving the body.
Mm-hmm.
And religion, there's so many directions to go, there's so many spiritual questions that we have, and so sometimes it becomes hard to believe, right? And so it's like, especially as we've given ourselves over to science, so it becomes then really impactful when science supports or validates spirit, because it's saying, hey, wait, don't think this is just some myth or just some story, but you're actually spiritual beings, having a human journey, right? Like we're in this body temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And from wherever we came, we may be returning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't want to get too into that because there's so many perspectives on it. But I'll say this, I had a patient who actually was in a coma and declared dead. And he came back and he told me, he was a young kid. And he had kind of like a little bit of a troubled life, right? He was 21, but he got himself together, and he was my patient for some time. And after the death experience, right, he drowned. So he was declared dead, and then he was in a coma, and then he came out of the coma, and he was telling me his story. And it corroborated like with all of the other findings that talked about being like reviewing the life. And he was saying that there were moments where he just was going through experiences as if he were the observer of those experiences. And he was trying to tell himself something in those moments. Like he was reliving. He said, he even gave me the story of when he was in a car with a bunch of gangsters, and he was telling himself, get out of the car. Like they were about to get into some trouble. This was a part of why he came to me in the first place. And he was telling me that he was reliving that, and he was observing it, and he just couldn't get himself to leave. Now, I'm not going to go too far into this because, again, I'm not trying to tell you what I don't know, because I have no idea. But for me, it just stood with me, and it made me really start my journey thinking about myself as a consciousness, thinking about myself as a spirit, and how first am I always, and maybe there's times when I ignore a voice that is within me. That voice may be me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think a lot about how, and I'm not going to go too off, but I think about what would this, if I am more than this consciousness, I have to think about myself in terms of the me that would be hovering over me. it would be free of this body. It'd be free. And that's where I started talking. I've talked in past talks about free of race, free of sexual orientation, free of like religion, free of any identity. It would just be a spirit being, right? So now check this out. And I'll just go into this for just a second, right? So then I started to think about what it would mean about if that is my being, and I'm just not paying attention that my spirit is my being, right? I start to think about what things I do on a regular basis that make me think I'm actually a being and disregard the spirit that I am. I'm not going to go too far. I know this is getting a little crazy. But one of the things for me that came up was eating. I recognize that I often would try to be feeding something that can't be fed. Your consciousness, your spirit, there's no food that goes in that thing, but that is all that we are. And so you're trying to feed something to your being that really doesn't need food at all. And that's not the type of food that your spirit needs. Now, I know we went way off. I'm gonna come all the way back. We're gonna hit some bubbles. I don't know what your thoughts are about this, Queen, but it does, I think, ultimately, I guess my point was, after studying this stuff and really kind of having patience, the reason why I started studying it even more is because I had patients who were experiencing it. I feel what Malik said, which was, I believe, and this is a belief, I believe that it is not over here. I believe that. And I believe strongly, like I'm connected to many of you, like the universe has brought our spirits together. I believe that, many people in my life, all the people in my life, we were brought together under a higher spiritual kind of connection. I believe it. One thing I know is I know that I don't know exactly what the fuck is going on.
That's the beauty of being human. That's the beauty of being a human, though, knowing that there's more than we know and being just okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, we'll pop some bubbles because I'm done. Talk this up.
And another thing I want to mention about death. Death is an inevitable thing.
Yeah.
But this also, I want to say, ties in, man, you know what I mean, to us establishing better health as we move forward. Because as humans, we used to live past 100 years. You know what I mean? And I only bring this up because people think that, we are to live forever. You know what I mean? But this is not the case. But being that we used to live till 1,000 years back then, you know what I mean? This is an understanding for me where, the approach would be health.
Absolutely. And there's two pieces. Malik, first of all, I'm loving you, brother. I like your energy. I like your thinking. And I'm thankful for your contribution. And I know you're Queens people, so that must mean you're a cool motherfucker. You're right on. There's two parts to what you're saying. First, treat the body as a temple that houses the spirit, and treat the temple as, it must be maintained in order for the spirit to be maintained, right? So that's part A. And, that was a part of why I tried to be a vegan, and it really kind of did a lot for my life in that time, and trying to always, kind of work on that part of me, which we'll have another talk about. But
he's vegan.
He's vegan? Malik is? Oh, yeah. Being a vegan is a very spiritual process, but we can talk about that. But the other thing that he brings up, which is really directly connected to existentialism, the questions about your existence, is, really kind of connecting that we are in the now. This is the only moment that we have. And so if you are fearing death, to reduce your anxiety about your mortality, be present and live fully. Extremely important. Extremely important. Because the reality is, right, and this is the trip, the reality is we are, like he said, we are all going to die. We absolutely are. And it can make people act out in certain ways to avoid that reality. people avoid thinking about their mortality and therefore choose as if they're going to live forever.
Mm-hmm.
I think Malik said it perfectly. We are not going to live forever in this form anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it becomes important that if we want longevity, people, and I love this thinking, people shouldn't fear dying. They should fear having not lived. When I've worked in geriatric facilities with people who are at nearing the end of their life, and a lot of times we'll review all that has gone on, and a lot of people, what I find there are people who are very they have good closure and like good disposition about the fact that they're dying, typically because they have loved ones that they've loved. They appreciate that. They feel like they've lived a very full life. They have no regrets. And the only regrets that they do have, and this is really important information for us, the only regrets that they do have are the things that they didn't fucking do. That's so powerful. They don't regret the mistakes. They don't regret the failures. They don't regret the things that they did wrong. All they regret is what they didn't do. You know, even for me doing this podcast, because the time that I spend doing this is really a loss of money for my practice and so forth. I could be, working, but this is so much more meaningful because I think about the fact that these that go in recording this podcast, if it impacts people, if you can replay this over and over again, even if you never talk to me, and so my life, my understanding, my work, it has all been for this moment. It makes me feel deeply fulfilled to be connected, my life work, to your lives, and to as many lives that will listen or connect to me and Queen. Does that make sense, Queen?
It does make sense. It does make sense.
Yeah.
Real quick before we press the bubbles, just in that, it made me think of children because it, beliefs came up a little bit, and it made me think about a conversation I had with, especially the visual and hearing atheists, and I said, if there's a comfort in knowing something, even if we don't know, then what is the problem with that? What do we tell our children when they talk about death or when death comes up? Because I remember being a child and being very devastated when I found out what that was prior to, experiencing it around me. Yeah. When the topic came up, the realization, because it was kept from me, learning that, I was like, whoa, like what, like we're not here no more. But I was saying to him, so what do you, as a person who's not, what do you do? And he was like, well, I think that we should just be telling children, like, nothing at all. More so like, yeah, there's an ending, but you don't need to worry about that. That's a long time from now. And then I think about my own children, and I know that when we've experienced loss, my children felt emotion towards me, but they are, I don't know how to say this without it coming off the wrong way, they are emotionally, like, they didn't register it the same way that I registered when I was around that age and was told. They can speak about it, like they'll say something on TV or they'll see something in conversation, like when it happened, and when I explained it to them when my sister passed, they kind of just, because I didn't make it this big, not that I didn't make it this big thing, but because I explained it to them that, this person's don't hear no more, and that makes me sad, but that's okay, that's a part of life. There's an ending. My kids are very, like, not emotional about it. I'm not explaining that, like, not
no,
that
I think
not emotional,
no, I think you're explaining it perfectly. You're saying that they have a greater comfort with that reality.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're explaining it perfectly. And I think that's what, when you think about mortality of yourself and others, you have the disposition of understanding this is a part of life. I think Malik is a brilliant guy. This is a part of life, death. And we all know that it's there, and sometimes it's so scary we try to avoid it. But if we embrace it in a certain way, it will come through in our conversation, in our actions, in our spirituality, in our celebration of the moment, our ability to be present, because this is the only moment that you have. And I talk to my daughter about my death too, because I tell her, I want you to take my ashes and I want you to sprinkle them through all the most beautiful places in the world, and take your time, take the rest of your life to do so. Right? Like, this is my request to her. These are the things that, like, you know, I tell her about the Q party that I want. You know what I mean? Like this is it. Like, though, like I want, you know, I tell the bros, if I go out, you better set that shit out. You know what I mean?
Prepares them.
It talks
for reality.
Yeah. And you talk about, like, and I also talk to my daughter, you know, about what I've said earlier, which is, please don't be so hurt that you don't bring me into the moment, because I don't want to be forgotten. I don't want to be forgotten.
When I was asked by my 7-year-old about me, and I know this probably will follow out to other people, but I explained to her, you know, you are my blood, you are me, and when I'm no longer in this body no more, I'm still in you.
For sure.
And I put my hand to her heart, her hand to my heart, and I explained to her, so all you need to do when you do have a moment where you're missing me, when that time does come, is feel me through there, because your heartbeat is mine. Like, we are one. And that was a beautiful moment. Like, she didn't get, she obviously felt what I'm saying to her. It's a you know what I mean? It's a difficult thing, but I wish that was the kind of moment I had with my parents in regards to it, because I wasn't prepared. You know what I mean? I didn't understand it.
I love what you're saying. I love what you're saying, and I'm gonna have just that conversation with my daughter. So thank you for that, Queen, because it's that is a beautiful addition to the conversations I've already had, and I think it's a perfect understanding. Perfect. So thank you for that. All right, let me get these bubbles before I start, because I'm about to cry. So you got me.
I'm
Queen
so
got us
sorry.
all choked up. This is a tough morning this morning. Yeah, we pushing through, though. We are pushing through. You're listening to Dr. Pete and Queen Honey, and we are doing our morning thing, because we're starting to enjoy being out with the morning crew. I think the best thinkers are up in the morning getting after it. So this is our group. This is our peoples. We love you for participating. We're trying to get to your messages as much as we can. But I hope that you're just enjoying the ride with us and being present with us as we're talking about the beauty of this life, you know, living it right now to the fullest. We're thankful that you're all with us. And let's get to it.
Yeah, I just went to a funeral yesterday, and it was like really sad due to COVID-19 restrictions. It was like, I'd never even been to a funeral like that, but it was just sad, you know, like people that's dealing with a loss right now, you have to maintain your sanity, because it's very, very hard to do, and don't like slide down depression lane. It was just crazy. I never thought, you know, both of my parents died in 2018. My father June 1st and my mom November 7th. So it's just, you know, death is such a shitty thing to deal with, but no less deal with it with your sanity.
Yeah. Gray, I'm not sure when you jumped into our conversation. I hope that everybody who's got a chance to just jump in will be able to re-listen to this talk, because there's so many points that we've been able to kind of hit. And, you know, most of our talks, I think you can probably do without, but I think everybody could use to listen to something that's as meaningful as talking about how to deal with loss. You know, I want, because most of the time we're talking about Queen's level of freak. If we're honest, if we're honest, let's talk about what, you know. Geez, man, Dingo took you to another level last. All right, I'm not going to get distracted with my jealous rage. Just going to get centered. So I wanted to, we're doing good on our bubbles, and we're doing good on keeping you guys connected. But I wanted to say, this COVID, dealing with this loss during COVID is horrible. I also went to a funeral last week. And it was difficult for a number of reasons. One, I think the most difficult part was staying focused in the moment and not being distracted by my own anxiety around contracting COVID, right? That's such a weird experience, right? Because you want to be present, you want to mourn, you want to be supportive of your loved ones. But for me, I have not been in, you know, they're saying now, if you're in a group of bigger than 5 people, one of those 5 probably have it, you know, in certain areas of the country, right? And so I'm like, you know, in this area, New Jersey, it's pretty dense here. And so I'm kind of like, holy shit, 20 people in a room. This is not where I want to be, right? But I got to be there because I love, my loved one has passed. My loved one's loved one has passed. And so I've got to be there. Really difficult. Now, the second hardest part for me, and I just want to talk about my own experience in COVID, losing someone in COVID, is not being able to have the repass. That part is bullshit, right? Like, please, God, don't let me die during COVID, because I need people to have the repass is the party. Like, what the fuck? Like, you missed the best part of the ceremony, which is everybody coming together and making each other feel better for a moment. From my perspective, is so important. And now you just have to kind of like, it was even more sad than regular, because there was only a small group of people there, when more people love that person, right? But only 10 people can come up. And then everybody kind of just walks their way afterwards. It was like fucking sad upon sad upon sad. I hated it. So anyway, if other people have experiences of COVID losses, please let me know. It's really a difficult thing. And people don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful thing to watch a ceremony online. It's nice that we can be connected, but it's just not the same.
Wow.
It's just not the same. Let's keep pushing through, and I have another poem to read in a couple minutes, so let's go through a couple bubbles.
It's not comfortable to be enriched, because really it takes a kind of a transformational learning opportunity, right? Like, you have to be okay with sometimes people coming up against your own inside voice, your own, the recurring tapes that we play all the time. And so, when we're coming up against that, it can be really difficult to be enriched, to be to allow another form of thinking into us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To help us to grow into or out of a situation. So this is a great topic about loss. I lost my mom last year, January 3rd of last year. Her 1-year anniversary clearly is coming up. I just spent her first birthday, our first Thanksgiving. We're coming up on Christmas, so it'll be my first Thanksgiving, Christmas without her. And it's been pretty tough, but, allowing myself to do certain things, like I wear my hair the way she used to wear her hair. I wear her lipstick color now sometimes. Like, those things are like things I do to just say, oh, I love my mom, I honor her.
Wow. That is a beautiful celebration.
So sorry for your loss.
Yeah. Finding ways to still feel connected and to still celebrate their life, I think, is a beautiful thing. The holidays are very difficult, but I think while the holidays often represent a time to get together and have a good time with family, and you definitely miss the person who's not available, it's also an opportunity for you to bring their spirit in through stories of times in the past. And, it's okay to even cry in those moments, because sometimes we feel and struggle to say, I shouldn't be able to be sad. I shouldn't be able to, I shouldn't allow myself to feel, we can only feel happy during this holiday, which is not true. My dog is trying to get in the conversation. Yeah. So we'll pop a couple more bubbles, but thank you for sharing that. And I also know what you meant by being enriched. Sometimes I think it's easier just to have fun and be entertained. And I experienced that myself, right? Like, not all the time do I want to be thinking about heavy things, but I at least was hoping that, some of our role on stereo, and I think there are many conversations that are enriching on this app. I do think they are. And I think it's a part of our responsibility to have some difficult conversations, because through which we grow. You're silent, Queen. You all right over there? All right.
When it comes to death, I think for me, it's more of not being prepared for it that I have a hard time with. Like, when a death comes, to surprise for me, that's like with my brother, that for me was like the worst feeling I ever felt in my life. Never felt no pain like that in my life. but I was unprepared for it. Nobody knew it was going to happen. It was no signs or anything. Nothing was really wrong with him. So now I look at things differently, like with my siblings and family or my close friends. I'm like, okay, I gotta, this shit can happen to anybody. So I gotta, make the best out of my time with people. And so that I would be able to deal with the loss of them in a better way, I guess.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. You're talking about it comes at us differently. Sometimes we're ready for it, sometimes we're not ready for it. Most of the time, no matter what, it's going to hit us. Sometimes when it's out of the blue, it's the most difficult because you never had time to prepare. And I think I was saying earlier, a lot of times when someone is dying of a terminal, disease, we have time to kind of like mourn, like we're steadily saying, like they're dying, and it may happen faster, but at least, it's not happening like one day they're gone. That shock is, it's beyond compare, because not only have you lost, but not expecting a person to be there is we don't know when our time is up. None of us do. And so kind of finding a way to weave into our expectation the understanding that this is not forever and that every day is a blessing. That level of gratitude and awareness will bring you into a present that will allow for you to celebrate your relationships differently. Every time I think about my mom passing, I call her because it will happen one day and I won't be able to call her one day. And that will be something that will hurt me. And so in anticipation that knowing we won't live forever, I send love to my daughter all the time, just kind of prepare thinking forever, because one day I might not be here. One day I will not be here. But that might be sooner than we anticipate. Queen, I hope you're okay over there. We'll keep popping some bubbles. I have a poem I want to read that I thought was good.
So I think it's easier. I don't know. In my brain, it's easier to process someone's, the loss of someone when you're preparing for it.
Right.
And I do understand, like, sometimes you're not going to be prepared for it, you know. But that's just my outlook on it. So I'm always trying to prepare myself, like, damn, what if something happens to this person or that person? How am I going to handle it? Like, how am I going to deal with that in my spirit? You know what I'm saying? So I'm always thinking that way. And I think it helps, but I'm not sure. I just really feel like we just need to learn how to deal with loss a different way.
Yeah.
I don't know what way yet, but yeah.
Again, sorry you guys, I was bringing my groceries in, so I wanted to mute so you guys wouldn't hear all that noise. But for convo, appreciate you sharing with us. And as a person who also lost a sibling, it's like, because I was thinking when I was trying to listen to you, is that, I'm wondering if it would be considered preparing, but I know that fear is something we have to deal with as well. Like, for me, I had a long time of like fear. For like a year, I was terrified of the news that would come, because I didn't know what my sister was doing. I didn't know the levels her addiction had went to. So I was constantly seeing things like about, because it's a major issue right now, right, in our country. And I just kept being afraid constantly. So when it happened, it was like, even though I think I prepared myself, I still, because the fear was there, it was like, oh my, like the worst thing in the possible that I could imagine actually happened, So I think speaking to what Dr. Pete was talking about, preparing yourself for it and just accepting that it happens is one thing, but the fear of constantly obsessing over it can be just as detrimental, because for me, that was the heavy hit, was like, being terrified of that constantly all the time, and then for it to come and happen, I I don't know if you know what I'm saying, if you understand what I mean.
I think you're saying it perfectly. I think that there are, whether it's the loss of your own life or the loss of someone else, you're dying or someone else is dying. In the end, there is no complete preparing for it, and it can be, the stress in the morning. It can be, something that kind of, it can be overwhelming, just the anticipation of it. And so I feel like the only answer, like I keep saying, because I remember there was a point when I was starting to feel a little bit of angst, like, just like a small level of anxiety that was around, like, that fear of losing. Like I kept thinking about it, and it just came to me that the only answer is to just live now, love now. That's it. Like it's no more. I wish it was more complex, but this is the only antidote, is to be present. I'll read this one. So I was going to read another poem, but I'm going to read a poem that I think is relevant to. I think poets do a good job of thinking about these things and being mindful of every word. So this poem is a closure. It says, like time suspended, a wound unmended, you and I. We had no ending, no said goodbye. For all my life, I'll wonder why. Closure. Yeah, I think that's. I think that is often people's experience. Is that they've not had the closure that they want to have with that loved one, and that's a part of the pain. And like it says in the poem, for all my life, I'll wonder why. We had no chance to say goodbye, So let's pop a couple bubbles. I'm going to probably be cutting our conversation a little bit short today because, man, I don't know how much more I can do it.
Heavy. It is heavy.
It's been good talking with you. Good, all of you guys having them. We're going to go through all of these and we're going to talk about a couple more things and try to address some of your comments. But we'll probably be here for probably another half hour and see how it goes.
Well, I just want to say real fast. You say wherever we came, but we came from the source. Everything, right. All thing in existence came from the source. So everything that you can see with your visible eye has came from the source. Everything, man, that you can see has a certain level of consciousness. You know what I mean? Certain level of energy. Everything is energy. Of course, we can't see it with our human eyes. But, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. Well said. What do you want to say, Queen?
Nothing. I agree with him. He's still listening. He's still in here.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So do not, because I think it's perfectly aligned with what you just said. So you just tell me what you think about this. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on the ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. I think it's really good. That's by Mary Elizabeth Fry. I think it's really good. And I think it captures what he said about, if you believe that it is all God around us, it's all in all the beauty and all of the life and all of it, you find opportunities to see your loved one in the beauty of those moments.
In everything.
Yeah, in everything. Yeah. Let's see.
That voice that's within you, us as humans, that voice we must pay attention to. That voice is your higher self. Every individual has a higher self, higher state of consciousness, ultimately pushing you close to God consciousness, to that parameter, you know what I mean, to that complete connection with source. Again, everything comes from source, aka the creator. creator that created all things in existence, to whom only all praise and worship is due.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe as you believe. And folks are welcome to believe as they believe. I think that's important too. But I feel that way too. It empowers me, and I think that a lot of people ask, well, in this day where atheism and a lack of belief is very kind of common, as our culture kind of says, well, there is no God, there's no imaginary guy in the sky, and when you think about it as a source, when you think about it as a higher power, when you think about it as a higher self, you think about these notions of spirit, I feel like that for me is undeniable. I don't know exactly what it is or how it works, but it is.
Well, that's why I asked, and not to delve too deep off into that, but that's why I asked a question in a conversation with my favorite on here, atheist, is that maybe sometimes as a human, the not knowing is just not enough. So you settle for there's nothing. And I feel like because, we are these beings, we can limit ourselves from even experiencing or seeing what, is there, right? Because we're putting ourselves in a block, like we're putting a block up. I think to know that things are possible that we do not understand, which that's, regardless of your beliefs, that's reality. As humans, we're constantly seeking information to understand what we do not understand. And even though some things come up that give us a little sense of, I know what that is, there's so much that we never will know. And that's okay. And I think in regards to something being greater than ourselves, we can agree on that no matter what our belief system is, right? And I said that to him. I was like, but when you just set a bar, like there's, I need more, but there's nothing, you're limiting yourself. You're not even continuing this beautiful journey of being a human and trying to make sure you get all that knowledge in regards to it. I think that's why even fathoming death is so hard, because even if there is people who talk about their experience, it's not enough for the human mind. It's like, it's not enough. I need to know more. And I used to suffer with that a lot as a child. It was like a thing that I would get into physical shakes and have trouble sleeping and be really, almost traumatized thinking about it. Like if I started to think about it and get too deep into it, because there was nothing for me to physically compare it to.
Unknown. It's unknown. Right. Yeah, the unknown. Yeah, it does. It can be, if you focus there very much, you can expand an abyss of anxiety.
Yeah,
because it is unknown, so you're fearful of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had very sharp moments of fear where I've thought about the fact that this will not be one day and what that really means, because there's a level of denial that we all experience, that we say, oh, we'll die one day, but many, many, many days from this day. And you start to get to a certain point in your life and you're like, well, not many, many days, maybe just many days. And then you get to a certain part and you're like, shit, soon. Right? And those are all developmental phases, if you're lucky enough to live long enough to have that go on. Yeah. You're listening to Dr. Pete and Queen Honey. I should put her first because she's like the more important one here. Queen Honey and Dr. Pete. And we are we're talking to you about death and dying today. I only ask one thing. I don't really need I don't need follows. I don't need any of that stuff. I don't need claps, I don't need listeners for leaderboard, but I do ask that, because it is deeply important to me. I ask that if you appreciate what the content of what we're putting out here today, I just ask that you share it with people who you think might benefit from it. I really believe that if you think hard enough, there is someone who would value hearing this and being able to hear it again and again, and just allowing for themselves to kind of be present with these words, with these ideas. And so I ask you to share this with your loved ones, with friends, and in any way, whether it's in social media, this is one of those talks. I don't always ask for that because some of the talks Queen has us talking about some shit I do not want people to know what I'm thinking about. Right? We have talks about a lot of stuff. Okay, so, but this talk, I think, is particularly important. So I'm glad that we're able to spend some time talking about this with you. Thank you guys. And thank you guys for listening with us today. Yo, why don't you pop some? But you have to make yourself.
I will pop the bubbles.
Jeez.
That was some deep shit. I was like doing some backing. I heard you say something, and my ears perked up. But that gut feeling, that voice in your head, that's actually you from another dimension or something. Like, that's deep.
That's crazy, right? Yeah, for sure. I'm glad that you're moving, Spirited. You're in your journey and you're moving on, and you've shared with us all, loss of relationship, which is in some ways a little different because it's also the beginning of a new relationship with yourself, and hopefully with someone else that may be more of who you need in your life. So you're kind of at a mixed bag, because it's still a loss. We like to think if we get divorced, it's like all party time, and sometimes it is a much better state. But even though my relationship was horrible with my ex-wife, and it felt like a dungeon of misery, quite frankly, and so to be divorced was like liberating. I still was very sad because it also marked the end of our family in that way. And so it was a very difficult thing, like no matter what. And in the beginning of when we were first estranged, the loss of that relationship impacted me very deeply. And I remember my friends, I have some good friends, a couple one particularly who's a psychologist. So, I was calling her ass all the time. Like she's like brilliant psychologist. Shout out to Dr. Timberlake. And she was like, she was there for me. And I realized that everything I was saying was reflective of this depression around the loss of the relationship that I was miserable in. And that's the crazy thing. People are like, well, you're divorced, you should be fine. You lost that person. You didn't want that person. You got rid of that person. And yeah, that part's true. But it doesn't stop you from being sad that the thing didn't work out.
Of course.
Because you started out loving them. Like you wanted it to work with your entire being, and all the pain that was along the way. It's just loss of a relationship is extremely painful as well. There was this ranking system I remember from graduate school, like it was like yesterday, right? And in the ranking, there were like things that are most stressful events that you can experience in life. And like number 1 was loss of a loved one, like we've been talking about all day. And like number 3 was like loss of like job. And then there's like 4 was like loss of a car. I don't know why I remember this. So I forgot so many things that I've read in my life, but I remember this chart so specifically because I remember loss. The number 2 thing on the level of stressful life events was divorce. And I was like, no fucking way. Because I was young at the time. I was in my 20s. I wasn't even married. And I was like, no fucking way. If I get divorced, I'll be out here in these streets. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, no fucking way. Am I going to be sad? Is it the second most stressful thing? And then I went through it. And just like, all that we've been talking about, many of us have experiences of different levels of loss, whether it's someone that was really close to us, someone that we struggled with the relationships that we struggle with. But it's not until you experience that loss that you really know what loss is, which I worry about because I know that I have some major losing to do because I'm a mama's boy. I don't know if anybody can tell, but some of you probably are like, yeah, duh. But I'm a mama's boy, and so even just thinking about that loss that will one day happen, and I hope that I lose her before she loses me, because I love her too much to have that pain in her life. I would never want that, but. It's a scary idea, and it makes me sad just to think about it. So we'll keep popping bubbles here. This is a really heavy conversation. So I got a little while longer before I start crying with you guys. If that's what happens, then that's what happens, right? We're present.
So my daughter said something super deep the other day, or maybe not so deep. I don't know which it is, but it was profound to me. We were packing, and we had to discard our fish that we have. I couldn't figure out, nobody would take the fish. They're little guppies, cute little things, and she's trying to save them by putting them in a bowl, take them out of this fish tank that we're selling, to put them in the bowl to see if we can find somebody to take them. They began to get scared of her. These are these fish that have been getting fed by her, who would come to the glass every time she'd come while they were feeding, and all of a sudden they were afraid. And she says, maybe this is like death. Maybe we're just going to another bowl, and to just welcome it. And I just looked at her and dumbfounded, like, wow.
You there, Dr. Pete?
Yeah. This bowl has been, I'm quite blessed to have this bowl. And, you know, the journey to this point, like I said, when you think about the therapists, psychologists say you should think about your mortality. You should think about the mortality of others, because it pushes you to be more present, right? And so when I think about my mortality, and especially now that I'm in my 40s, I'm 44, I think about, like, I started playing the drums this year because I was like, if I'm ever going to play an instrument, I got to fucking get after it. And I've been, you know, trying to play different instruments through the years, and I'm like, but I found my home in drums, and I'm like, all right, play these fucking things, like, do it every day, have some fun, you know. I spend every moment I can, you know, when I'm with my daughter, I try to be as present as possible. You know, I try to just, you know, like, pay attention, be mindful, like, breathe in deeply the air, and walk while you can walk, and, you know, think while you can think, and just be as present as possible, and get the most out of the now. And that's why I'm doing this podcast. I mean, people say to me, you know, if you're a doctor, why are you doing this? Because this, to me, is a beautiful celebration of the now. I'm really, it means so much to me that, you know, 16 people are willing to sit with me, and Queen is willing to sit through me, through my shit, and just be with the thoughts that I have spent my whole life curating. I have spent my whole life thinking about these things with great depth, and I appreciate the fact that you are, you know, give them honor by just listening to me, and then sharing your experience. It means, I can't tell you how much it means to me. So it is, I say that to say, this is as much for me as, well, it is all for me as I try to make it for you. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's not true.
What about close friends passed recently? It kind of hurts. I really think about it a lot. He was a young guy, man. He died at, what, 30, I believe? And it just sucks. Still think about it.
Yeah. You know, I've had some friends pass with COVID. One of my fraternity brothers passed away. He's a young guy. The reason why I mention that is because, you know, we've been talking about all sorts of passing, but when somebody young passes away, like, you never expect it, right? But this guy was not somebody that I had in my life every day. This was my fraternity brother, a relationship from before. But we would see each other on occasion, and you know, like whenever the frat would get together, we'd see each other, you know, maybe every couple of years. For me, because I wasn't really that active. And so when I would see him, though, he would, "Hey, what's up?" You know, like, we'd go down memory lane, and he and I did certain work in the fraternity, and we had certain memory. We had our shared memory, and he knew me in a way that, you know, not a lot of people know me for the work that I've done in the fraternity, right? And so when I lost him, I kind of was trying to think about, like, why am I? Because I don't see the guy all the time. I only knew him, like, on occasion. We do meetings. Like, why did I feel this loss so much? And it's because, you know, that person knows you in a certain way. They have, and so when they pass, it's like literally like a part of you passes with them. And parts of you that only are understood and shared between you two. And that's it's really, it's complex. It's complex.
Thank you for sharing, Black Joe and Dr. P.
I want a hug, but I don't want one of those like nasty hugs that you try to give out to Mandingo. Like I want like don't put your leg up on me. You know what I'm saying? Like I just need like a virtual loving hug. You know what I mean?
I just want to encourage everyone today to just look up. We look down so much, whether it's at our phones, whether it's because we're depressed, whether we're going through something, we're looking down. Look up. Keep your head up. Stay focused. Stay positive. Look at the stars. Encourage everyone to keep your head up today.
Yeah, man. E-Mind. I'm following you, man. I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I gotta find you. I hope you're still here. I appreciate that. I appreciate and by the way, I know that we're not in an effort to boost you up the boards. Fuck the boards. Everybody should be following everybody because there's some beautiful people here, right? So jump in here and follow each other. And you know, I see there's folks and giving reactions here. There's some cool people in the party. I always appreciate that you guys stop in and hang out with us. That means a lot because I know you can be in anybody's show. And so we're thankful that you're hanging out with us.
This is Dr. Pete, and you've been tripping with Dr. Pete. For the full show, please listen to us live on stereo, or you can listen to playbacks on YouTube, Anchor, and Spotify. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, huh? Peace.